excuse me. Is this the hair gods? Yeah? What did you want us to talk about today? Oh, how people are completely limited by mate traits and how it's fucking up their psychology. Cool, let's go there. Let's do it.
I like that idea. Who was that?
Oh, it was the hair god. It was Vidal himself.
Vidal. You channeled Vidal.
No, I don't think it was him actually. He wouldn't agree with what we have to say. So, but mate traits.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about mate traits because
it's a hot topic right now, isn't it?
Well, it always is. Every time I speak about it, people go crazy. People go crazy. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone else speaking about it.
No.
Have you seen anyone else speaking about it?
No. Don't think so.
They'll talk to us about it in person. It's a bit of a pinch point. It's a pain point, but I haven't seen anybody else publicly speaking about it because their mates are the ones that are following them and they're afraid to lose them as clients.
Yeah.
It's a very liberating place to live when you don't need clients anymore. Like I can speak about it, and I think the fact that I am speaking about it would still attract clients.
Yep.
They would just pay full prices, which is not.
Yeah, they'd pay full, and I think they'd appreciate it, and they'd be opened to a new paradigm and a new way of understanding the hair game. Remember all the conversations we used to have, when we were doing the podcast and working in the shop all the time, people would be blown away. They would always come to us and say, I never thought about it like that. And it would bring our level of respect and trust up even further.
Yeah.
They'd be like, wow, never saw it that way. And it makes them think about their own actions, and they'd be like, damn, I've probably been treating barbers like this my whole life.
Yeah.
And it calls everybody to a higher level. Yeah. It's mad. What I'm most surprised about, I've never been a big one for mates rates. I've never given a lot of mates rates.
You were good at that in the barbershop days. I feel like that people pleaser didn't come out of you as much.
No.
I feel like your approach, so if we go to your constitution as a number 5 and like just how you generally are, I don't think when it comes to transactional behavior, that's just what it is. You leave a lot of the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'm like the people pleaser by nature.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I put that content out online. It doesn't necessarily seem that way.
Yeah.
But I've had to kind of train my way out of it. Whereas in the hair industry, you were used to dealing with a lot bigger transactions anyway.
Yeah.
Like if you come through the hairdressing world, you're dealing with hundreds of dollars and hundreds of dollars of products in some cases.
It wasn't weird for people to pay a couple of $100s on their hair and walk out with an equal amount of product. That wasn't like a weird thing. That was like, great, that was a good transaction.
Yeah.
How many more can you do it like that? That was just like the go. And there is a big disconnect between the salon world and the barber world. And I think the two will slowly merge together. But I think a couple of layers there, what happened to me was I'd already had a lot of years ironing that stuff out. I'd gotten to a point where I was like, no, you have to charge full price. You have to, because I understood the numbers and what was going on in the metrics of a business. I was like, wow, I already worked out on my own accord that the margins of a barbershop weren't that high. So, and it's not like a corporate job where a lot of corporate jobs, there's like budgets and there's all these things, and some are even sponsored by the government, and government might give budget and this, that and the other, and it goes up one year and it goes this and they've got more to give there. It's like, but the barbering world's not like that. I understood that you can only take home what you make.
Yeah.
And so it just makes no sense to give a discount. So I think by the time I met you and working in the capacity that we were working in, I'd already ironed a lot of that out, but it definitely was there. There were times where I've let people walk out the door for free before. Not on my accord, but people that have like kicked off. There was one instance where someone actually said, I hate it, it doesn't suit me. This was a regular client when they just walked out the door without paying, and I just let them go. Because my boss at the time also said, just let them go. So there's all those experiences where I've had to iron out all that stuff, and I've definitely given discounts. been through the myriad of kids prices and this. But yeah, by the time we worked together, I think I was already over that stuff and realized that no, we can't be doing that. It doesn't make sense. The margins are too small. And like you say, leaving the emotion out of it and think about the time, right? And, I have compassion for the people that are kicking up in these messages, because a lot of people, I would say the majority are 5 years and under in their career. So there's a bit of a people pleaser still in them. And there might not be layers of evidence just yet for them to trust themselves that, okay, I feel confident in doing this. By the time I switched over to only men's hair, I think I've been doing hair maybe 12, 13 years. And there were some accolades already in place. And, I trusted that I could cut hair. I felt like, I could probably handle most things. So there were levels of evidence that I got to, which helped with that as well. And that's exciting. Two things I hear in what we've already just spoken about. What's really exciting is you've trained yourself out of a people pleaser, which shows that it can be done. So for anybody thinking that oh, no, that's not me. No, it is you, because you've done it. You've trained yourself out of it. And I've trained myself out of it in a different way. By taking like the Hormozy approach, by collecting layers of evidence. So I trust myself that, yes, I can do this.
Yeah. No, for sure. It plays look, I think if we're to go back, like, to where it all starts.
Yeah.
It starts, and we've spoken about this on multiple podcasts as well. It starts with a framework of getting new clients for practice. And I think it just snowballs from there into mates rates later down the line. Now, caveat to start the podcast, it's all well and good for me to be talking about mates rates when I've spent the last, as we just discovered in the last few days, 10 plus years building my personal brand. Before I was even a barber, I was building my personal brand in a different industry. So like, I've been doing a different exercise, if we're to look at it as a gym, than most people. So it's easier for me to build that evidence. Well, actually, no, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to catch my own fucking language there. It's not easier for me. I've just done the work. Yeah, I've just put in the necessary work that was required to build the perception needed in order to avoid the whole mates rates thing. If anything, I get tipped because of how the perception is.
That's what I hear there with both of the way that we're explaining this, is like, we did the work and we put the reps in, and we didn't repeat year 1 10 times. You didn't repeat year 1 10 times. So what a lot of barbers do, and look, we say all of this stuff with love. Like, if anything hits a chord in your nervous system, it's probably a good thing. And we say all of this stuff with love because we want to help everybody. So the whole point of this podcast, that's why it's called Unlimited, to help you unlimit yourself. Yeah. Like I said before the podcast, help you unfuck your life.
Yeah.
So what we see is most people repeat year 1 over and over and over and over and over again. And that is what will keep you trapped.
Yeah.
And what I see with your career and my career is we didn't repeat year 1 over and over and over again. We did year 1. We'll debrief what worked, what didn't work, what can I do better, what am I proud of, let's go again. Yeah. And we improve and we improve and we improve. And look, it's been, since we've known each other, both exponential journeys of growth. And that's an important one to keep in mind here. Growth on all levels, and I just don't know. I couldn't go back to the mindset. It's just embedded in my mindset now of like, of course my prices go up. Of course they do. I'm growing all the time. Like, that requires a new expansion, new prices, new levels of wealth, new levels of consciousness and energy and awareness. And of course it does. Even with what we do now, we have a funny joke of like, this is the cheapest you'll ever get us. Yeah. Our prices now for coaching, $5,000. It's not going to stay like that forever.
No,
that will go up. You want to come to,
as our haircut in price.
Exactly. You want to come to 3-day course, $3,000. That's going to go up eventually. Like,
well, it's probably going to be gone eventually.
Well, eventually it'll go.
That's the thing.
This is where it gets interesting, I think.
Yeah, because like all of the greats, like you were speaking about, Charlie Munger, gone. Can't get access to him anymore because he's not around. So like at a certain point, all this stuff will be gone. Like you can't get. I had somebody message me yesterday saying, "Hey, are you still taking new clients?"
Same. I had a text last week. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, "Are you still taking new clients?" It's like, "No, I'm not.
No.
You can't get it anymore."
Yeah.
So at a certain point, with that in mind, like the trend and how we've been trending in our lives and careers is, at a certain point it will change. So it's like, get it now while it's happening.
Yeah.
But what happened, like when I reflect on my career, there was times even in the later days where I still was kind of caught in the trap of mates rates.
Yeah.
But it's not until you zoom out and add it up over a longer period of time that you realize how damaging it actually is.
Do you think that was intrinsic or environmental?
Environmental.
I think there was a lot of environmental at play there.
And I also think it was a lack of education, a lack of business education and acumen, and actually looking into the future of my life and thinking.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I think what's really important, what you said at the start, is the margins.
Yeah.
Like the business that we operate in now versus the barbershop business, the margins are completely different. Worlds apart. Like we're actually operating now in one of the highest margin businesses that is around versus the barbershop and salon, one of the lowest. And if you're giving people a $5 discount on a $5 margin service, you're making no money. You're operating at a loss.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense. And that is happening a lot more than...
Well, that's a common story. We talk to a lot of people in a lot of barbershops. That's a common story.
Yeah. And it's nothing, that's where the emotional and logic thing comes in, because people are making emotional decisions rather than logical decisions. And it's based on self-worth. It's based on how they view their current level of skill set. Now, to go back full circle to the very start, when we start cutting hair, it makes sense to do it for cheaper and to do it for free, because we're doubling up on something. We're getting better at it whilst making ends meet. You know, at a certain point, it just has to break even at the start. Like, are my costs covered? Yeah. Am I learning? Am I able to have a bit of relative freedom? Yeah. Cool. So when I first started cutting hair, my tactic was I cut hair for free. First haircut's free. Second haircut after that's going to be €5, which is 10 Australian dollars or something. Then it just kept creeping up with supply and demand to the point of 150 plus in the last kind of couple of years. And then we went from 150 to, like, you know, all of our stuff is over $1,000 now. Yeah. Apart from the hair index. Yeah. And that's just playing a different game. Yeah. But it's also providing a different level of value. So the return that people are going to get from what we're offering them now versus what we're offering them with a haircut, they just get an aesthetic return. They're just looking good for a couple of weeks. Yeah. Now, that's still, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to brand, like, what return are people getting from a pair of shoes? We used to have this conversation with one of the guys we worked with about, but people will spend hundreds, if not thousands, on clothes. Like, why should they spend hundreds on a haircut? Because you're going to have that t-shirt for 6 months or 1 year or whatever it is. But I think that's kind of besides the point. You're buying somebody's time and value. Yeah. Towards the end of my hair journey, I've said this on the podcast before, I was helping people with more than just giving them a haircut. Right? Like, I was giving them like, if you're picking up what I'm putting down during the haircut, you can change your life with that information. Like, if you're hearing, like, to the conscious ear, certain words will land differently compared to the unconscious ear. Like, I could say, and actually, do you know what? The more I develop that within myself, the simpler things that I hear are having such a deeper impact. Yep. It actually goes from not knowing so much and trying to make it complex to knowing a lot and trying to make it simple. Yeah. That's where genius switches. Yeah.
And those are the best coaches, those are the best teachers, leaders. Yeah. But to touch on the beginning of the career, I think my journey was a blessing. When I really think about it, I haven't thought about it like this in ever, I don't think. Just touching on that, I did a very similar thing. So I took the old school approach. I was very fortunate to get an apprenticeship, right? Did a 4-year apprenticeship. And in that apprenticeship, I did all of my training haircuts were for free. And you know what happened? They didn't charge any money until they thought I was ready to charge full price. And then what did that do? That put a rocket under my ass to be like, I need to get good. Because then I want to, when I go full price, I want to know I'm full price, you know, that customer's getting that full price thing. So that was a blessing, and it didn't take that long.
Yeah.
Because by the time I was finished my apprenticeship, I was already running a full column. There aren't many apprentices that just walk into a full column. So I think there's a little...
It's delayed though. It's calculated.
Yeah, it's calculated. And that was where I was going to go with that. Not even on me, on the business. So this is like...
But then what does that do from the business lens? It forces them to train you properly.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time people these days want apprentices to start making them money straight away.
Which is a silly idea.
It's like, what?
Which is a silly idea. And so
counterintuitive in the long run.
So how I read this is like the business that I worked for hired me because they could afford to hire me with knowing that delayed gratification is a thing. That was one of the blessings I think about an apprenticeship model. What it was you had to have delayed gratification. You knew that person wasn't going to become a cash cow for 3-4 years. They weren't. They couldn't, because they couldn't deliver the product. Yeah. But that was the whole point of the process. It was a nurture. It was a grow. And it was like, you know, planting the seed, like we always say, plant a seed in this person, watch it grow. We're proud of that. And then the whole thing starts to move around. And that was one of the really cool things about that business was they only hired and took on apprentices when they could afford to train them properly. They trained me properly. That's why I look at it as a blessing. My apprenticeship, brilliant. The people I was exposed to, and the training I got was brilliant. I rarely see it now anywhere. It was really cool. And yeah, everything was free up until the point. I remember there was just a day. And there was one, I always had to get my haircuts checked, right, by the guys working in the shop. And there was certain things that I just kept messing up on. And I knew that it's like somewhere in me, I was like, damn, I keep doing this thing. And it depends how you hear things, right? It was a simple thing that I had to hear. And I think this is how good of a listener you are. One of the guys, Rob, came over to me, and I could tell one day it was a busy day. I think it might have been a Friday or something. And he was like, Leigh, if you just do haircuts like this way that I've shown you, I won't have to come and check them. And I went, oh, yeah, of course. And then I just put it on a rocket ship. Like I fixed all the things that I needed to fix. And it was like overnight. And maybe they knew I was close, you know? But he said to me, just whispered to me, he said, Leigh, if you do haircuts like this, he's like, I won't need to check them. I was like, oh yeah, of course. Because maybe there was a part of me keeping myself stuck in my limiting thing of like, oh, yeah, I need the confirmation of this person to do this thing. Mm-hmm. And so then it was like, I think within a week or two, they were like, all right, you're ready, full price, start booking out your column, boom.
Yeah.
And that was all I needed to know, because he said the thing. If you do haircuts like this, I won't have to check them. Then a couple of weeks later, I thought, I must be doing haircuts like that now. So I just trusted myself. I was like, he wouldn't have said that and made this happen unless it was true. And then it was full price.
Yeah.
And I think, what a great model. What a great model to actually hire apprentices when you can afford them, to train them with delayed gratification, knowing that you're going to reap that. Because again, I walked into a full column.
Well, if you're doing good work right before you go onto full price, the people that like the work that you've been doing have been getting it for free up to that point. Yep. So when you do go to full price, the justification piece is, well, I've been paying nothing up to now.
Yep.
And they kind of, in the conversation, you can explain that I'm in my apprenticeship and I'm about to go there. They're following you on a journey. That's actually a brand as well.
Yeah.
They're following the brand journey of you and your 100%.
Career. And like then, you know, I was given the highest quality product that I could at the time. So when it did come to raising the price, it was a no-brainer. The guys were like, you should have been doing that earlier. My clients were like, you should have been doing that earlier. Yeah. They were just happy to get the thing, right? They knew they were getting a good thing for a free price. But they also knew that the day is going to come that you're going to go up to full price. And when I did go to full price, it wasn't an issue. So I was like, of course, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. But then I look at the business side of things. The business reaped the rewards of that so much, because then there was so much trust and training built into me that then within that first year, I started doing competitions. I started doing this. my face was in the paper, that got their brand in the paper, blah, 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 blah. And then they must have just thought, brilliant, well, that worked. And that was their machine because they'd done it with a couple of other people. And themselves. They'd modeled it on themselves and they'd modeled it with a couple of other people. Now, I probably ran with it the furthest. Yeah. And there's personality traits galore and whatever in there. But that's just interesting to look at as a system and a model. And exactly like you said, most people hire apprentices because they want them to make money straight away, which is actually ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
But they're doing it because they're not making money themselves first, so they haven't filled up their own bucket.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many other levers that you need to pull first before you get to that level. That's the water, that's the sprinkle on top of the cake.
Yeah.
That's the icing of the cake is the apprentices, not the cake itself. And that is some of...
Because also what happens on a knock-on effect, like I was also around a great team, right? But if the apprentice comes in and they're not around a great team, you're not even busy yourself and you're not up to the standard that you want to be and you don't have the smarts yourself, well, by osmosis, they're not going to get any better and you don't create great talent. And it's, you just don't. Yeah. And the salon that I worked for fired out great talent because I think there was something embedded in the system.
Yeah. And the conundrum these days is that the kids don't want to wait for 4 years.
And they don't.
But were you getting paid during that time as well?
Yeah.
Well, that's some of the difference. You see, these days people don't want to pay apprentices and they want them to do all this stuff for them, and they're looking at it as a cheap way of making money.
But they explained it to me. They said, look, Leigh, we're going to pay you this. It was £80 a week, right? Which is $160 a week.
Listen to that one, guys.
Yeah.
So £80.
I got £80 a week for the first 3 years of my apprenticeship.
Fucking hell.
Or two,
maybe you went all the Jordans and you were...
I was head to toe, wasn't I? No, I didn't, because I had to pay rent to my mum and dad. I had to pay for my phone bill. I bought a car. I had to pay for the petrol for that. I had a girlfriend. We would go out. I was even budgeting from then, and then I was only out on the floor maybe a year, and I came to Australia. So then I had to save for Australia. I came to Australia with $6,000. I was like, I don't know how I did it. I have no idea how I did it. When I got on to full-time wage, I was only making about £230 a week, which is about $500 a week.
Yeah.
Not even $450, $460 probably a week. And I managed to save because I was just budgeting from that age. But I think there's magic in there. There really is. So, but they explained it to me. They said, Leigh, look, you're not going to be bringing in any money, so we're capped on what we can pay you. And I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. I wasn't getting emotional about it. I was logical about it. I was like, of course you can't pay me anymore. Of course. I'm not making you any money.
Yeah.
But they were like,
the moment look at it like, oh, the business is making money, so you should pay me more. But
exactly, that wasn't. Like we explained at the start, this isn't a corporate industry. This isn't a budgeted, government subsidized industry. So you can only take on what you make. And they explained that to me, and they said, the moment, the day that it does come, we can then start bumping your wage up. And I was like, brilliant. And it did, and it got to, I wasn't getting paid as much as the other guys, but I got to more than what I was getting paid. So it made sense to me. And then they stuck by their word, and they paid me. When I started making money, they paid me more. It's just, and the whole thing worked as a beautiful system.
Yeah. It's why the barber growth formula.
The growth formula is, 100%. So anyway, back to mates rates, like, there's a trap, isn't there? Because now, barbering, I think a lot of guys do cut all their mates' hair. This is a trap as well. Because you imagine, I think a lot of barbers, you think of these young kids, right? Like these 20, 21-year-old kids. I would say there's probably a big percentage of their clients are their mates. That's dangerous.
It is.
Because if a large portion of your clientele are your mates, and you've been giving them discounts this whole time, that's really going to affect your profit, your top line. Big time.
Yeah, I agree. To just backtrack slightly, I just want to compound down on 100% on what you were saying.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a bit of constraint to build principles within people and to build character. There's nothing like a bit of constraint to build character and principles, because what did you have to do with that constraint? You had to learn how to budget, you had to learn how to allocate, you had to learn how to sacrifice, you had to learn how to make things work on not much. I mean, if you can make things work on not much, you can make things really work on a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
But the key there is to, when you have a lot, is not to keep working on things with the same principles. The principles change and evolve as well.
Yep.
And then it all becomes compound interest. Like, our careers are compound interest. The line from A to B, the performance curve, isn't a straight line.
Nope.
It's a curve. So it starts slow, and it gets, you get to a certain point, and then again, compound interest being the seventh or eighth wonder of the world, or whatever it's called. Our careers are the same. Yep. But if we do it, the earlier we start building that compound interest and getting, reading books, getting mentors, getting coaches, the quicker we'll actually get to where it is that we want to go. The faster we start going up on that performance curve. And plus, on that performance curve, there's levels to it, right? Like, if you were to look at it like a graph, on the side you have the 0 to 100. It's like, I don't know, say 0 is 0 and the top of the curve is $1 million. Like, where are you placing yourself on the curve? Like, what level are you playing at? So like, we started at the 0, and then instead of like just staying low, you started at the 0, honed your craft, built your skill, and then boom, boom, jump up the curve.
Yeah.
And like, that's probably a wiser thing to do. It's the same thing as buying a house. Buying a house like you've done. It's a similar principle. It's like a longer term thing where are you going to pull hundreds of thousands of dollars out of savings doing haircuts versus, biding your time, buying a property, having a investment strategy, and then boom, big chunk.
All of a sudden.
Big chunk. It's like the saying, the smart person, this sums up the hair industry perfectly. Sorry guys, but the smart person, or the person who's cutting down a tree, for example, if you gave the smart man an hour to cut down a tree, he'd spend the first 50 minutes sharpening the axe, and then he'd cut it down with minimal effort. But what else happens in that situation? People just run in and start hammering at the tree with a blunt axe and never really get there.
I love this. Did you ever used to watch, what was that science show? Was it Mythbusters or something? Do you remember that?
It was like that, yeah.
Remember that one? Was it that one?
On Sky and stuff.
And they did a test on what was the fastest way down. So they had two balls. One went down on a straight line.
Yeah, and one
went down on a curve. Just a curve.
Okay.
And when you look at it, you think, the one that goes down straight, surely that's the fastest. But it wasn't.
Yeah.
The one on the curve went faster.
Why is that?
It's velocity.
Yeah. Well, gravity.
Yeah.
And momentum. Like, with gravity comes momentum.
Yeah. And I think about it in the opposite way up too. It's like, sometimes it is that, slow, it just goes up.
But the beauty of that is that in the slow of the curve is where you get all the lessons to then be able to maintain it.
Yeah.
Because if, you get the overnight success, people and business, e-commerce products, crypto, whatever, a lot of the time people just get overnight success and get wealthy to that and don't know how they've done it.
Yeah.
But you see, the principles that you build whilst on the curve actually allow you to generate new ideas, understand the rules of the game, understand principles, understand, like, we're never going hungry again.
Yeah.
Like, because we do hair now with our eyes closed. That automatic park on the car is basically us cutting hair.
It's just a great analogy. Yeah.
That is it. It's just so fucking easy that we have opened up space for other things to come through. So I love that, and I love sharing that, and to bring the conversation back to mates rates. When we get educated on business, and when we start treating our lives like it's a business, and treating our life like it's a business, we start to understand and recognize how important our time is. Mates rates is one problem. Mates hours is another problem. And that is just something that's just clicked into place, because mates rates usually come with outside of hours appointments, which really need to be double. They need to be more.
More, 100%.
Because something that, typically kind of happens is somebody will work, and I see this in Ireland and the UK a lot because people don't make as much money. They'll work in a barbershop and then they'll cut their mate's hair at home and their family's hair at home for cheaper. But that's outside of your hours of work. And the manipulation in that is that people think that they're doing you a favour, when really they're just eating into all of your energy and time that you could be spending on doing other things and educating yourself for the bigger jumps on the performance curve.
Yeah.
Now, building a clientele of only your mates, I'm just going to unwind it another little bit first. I think, when do mates rates make sense? When is it okay to give mates rates?
Yeah.
If you have a mate who's bringing a lot of people to you,
Yeah.
and it's like a referral affiliate system,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
People are coming at full price.
Yeah. So the thing I've been thinking about since last night is that question: when are they okay? It's I think the only time for me, the only time I ever let myself do it is by choice. Conscious choice. I choose to give mates rates because I want to, not because they want it. That's the big one. See, where a lot of people fall short is I think they feel guilty for not giving it to the person because the person wants it. When that doesn't do anything for either party, because it allows you to confirm your bias in your head, and it also allows them to stay a scammer, as the person that also has a bias in their head of like, I have authority, I get to pull the strings, or you're not worth that, or I don't think that's worth that. Or the bottom revolves around me. So my mate rates now are just a zero. Like, it's nothing. I'd rather you not pay me, and I choose to do it for a connection, or like you say, for a either mutually enjoyable experience or a mutually beneficial experience. I use hair to like reach people now, to get to people. If someone's got some interesting information, I think, this would be a nice way to connect.
Yeah.
I could cut your hair. The hair's just happening.
Yeah.
But at least it's a way for me to kind of get in the door up to that person. It's like anybody that wants to meet a great investor or a great mentor, right? They always think about, well, what is it that you can bring to them?
Yeah.
And that's the only way I would choose to do it. Or if it's a dear friend, I would like, look, I know you'd like this thing. I can do it. But how about we make this a thing where I'll tell you what time this is going to happen. I'll schedule it into my day. And it's a catch up. Beautiful. And that's how I'd rather do it. I'd rather not discount my time.
Yeah.
I'd just rather not.
It's choice.
It's choice.
It's actually a value exchange then.
Yes.
It's like a value exchange. It's like, okay, there's certain people that in my life, friends that I've had since I came to Australia, I'll cut their hair for free. Like, I don't care about the money because I'm not relying on that as my sole source of income.
Yeah.
So I'll just do it because it's a nice way to catch up, and they appreciate it and they want it. When it becomes their choice and not my choice, that's when it gets a little bit dodgy. Yeah.
And look, like, some barbers might hear that and be like, well, I can't give one of my mates free haircuts. It's like, exactly, don't. If you're doing them in business hours, when you're running your business, this is what we need to understand. The key word is your business. That in your business hours, it's full price. We can't keep taking a chink out of the arm of the business because all of a sudden it becomes non-profitable, or you've run at a loss again, like we always hear. So if you're ever going to do mates rates, make sure it's your choice. And make sure it's calculated and you call the shots. And what I've experienced is you'd be amazed at what that does. And it's like the Hormozy effect, right? You give so much value. Because we can cut hair really well now. Like, they get one of the best haircuts they've ever had. When they sit in our chair, they feel obliged not to pay. They're like, I can't not pay you for this. Like, this is amazing work. We've had incredible value in the connection and the thing. And people always say it. Let me transfer you. Let me give you some cash. Let me do this. So you'd be amazed what happens. Now, on the flip side of that, bringing up, charging full price, with the idea of raising your prices over time, you'd be amazed at the people that it attracts. You know, we always talk about frequency, we talk about energy, we talk about the different types of people. When you actually start to bring up that level of solidity and like authenticity in yourself, it also attracts those types of people. Like, I don't get people ever complain about the price anymore.
No.
Number one, I don't do a lot of haircuts, but the people that I do cut, it's almost like I've chosen them. I've chosen them to be my clientele. They probably don't feel like it that way, but I've very carefully curated and selected those people. But they don't complain about the price. And it's the types of people that I've attracted into my world.
Mm.
And they're very careful about who they refer to me.
Yeah.
For two reasons. They know my time is scarce. So they don't want to miss out on the spot, which makes them happy to pay for the spot. Because they're like, damn, if I go and tell John, what if he takes my spot? So they're very careful, and they only refer people to me
who are not going to mess around.
Who are not going to mess around,
and high level,
and high level people, and they're gonna bring value as well, because they know what I'm about. They know I just don't. It's no bullshit.
How do they know? And that's the question. I'd like that's really important for people to realize. Is how do they know that?
Two things. First off, it's been in my environment for so long. We've had, a lot of my clients have been cutting for many, many years, and there's a level I've gotten to them in terms of story and how we communicate to each other, and setting the precedence and like the level of things and the standards of things. There's a standard I hold for myself, and I don't try not to drop from it. And they get that, and they feel that, and they understand that. And I'll do it one day. I'll get the microphones out, and I'll get the camera out, and I'll record some of the conversations, and I'll get these answers from these people just to show these barbers what's possible. Yeah, the conversations that I have with my clients, and I know you've had them with your clients as well, because I used to hear it. I don't see people having those conversations with people at all. They jump in the chair, and there's hardly any talk about the haircut at all.
No.
It's like, you trust me? Yeah, we can make minor changes, like if that even comes up. But it's straight into, it's almost like they're coming to school. They're like, what are we going to learn today? And some of my guys do say that to me. They're like, what have you got to teach me today? They're like, And it's so cool. And the second piece is brand, personal brand. Like, anybody that looks at what I do, because it's very easy to find what I do. And a lot of them, most of these people are on Instagram these days. Most are on Facebook, YouTube, wherever they find us. They just look at that, and they've got a plethora of posts to look at, and they understand me and my energy and who I am, and the stories that I tell, and the voices, the language that I use, and they understand.
Yeah.
So it would be silly for them to think that there's going to just be some random with a crap haircut who doesn't want to pay full price to send them to me just because I do a good haircut.
Mm.
So it's incredible. It's incredible when you can get to that point.
Yeah.
And I believe most people can. Just take a bit of bravery, a bit of courage.
Yeah. I love looking at other industries and drawing comparisons across consumer behavior in other industries. And I just was thinking about the car industry. If you go to the Ford or the Toyota garage, or you go to any of the kind of, middle of the road, good solid car places, garages, people are looking for a deal. People are looking for, they're looking for something that, like, how can I get the most, and how can I get the best thing that I can get for the least amount of money? Whereas the conversations that are happening at Lamborghini or Ferrari or any of these other places aren't conversations around like deals and prices. It's like people are going in there already like willing to buy. I had this conversation with my little brother the other day. He works in sales for Mercedes, and I was observing it, and I was just thinking, you're actually not really a salesman, you're a closer. People are sold before they get to you. Like, they're not coming in to, like, because Mercedes, you could say, are kind of on the precipice of like luxury car. Like, most of the time people are getting a Mercedes because they have the money to do it, or, as he would tell me himself, they don't have the money to do it and they're financing it to make it look like they do. But he's closing, he's not selling. He's just He's just given the people like information that they're coming already in with their decision made. Same with Apple. People don't go to the Apple store looking for a discount. I found that really interesting in Bali with the markets. The crowd of people that were at the markets versus like the boutique shops are different. You don't see somebody going into Gucci or Prada, not that I like this fucking stuff by the way, but you don't see someone going into Gucci or Prada or Louis Vuitton and trying and haggling them at the desk and being like, can you do it for me? It's for cheaper. No, the rules are set and the rules are understood before they even get to the place. How and why? Brand, how do we communicate the value? Like, whereas when you go into the market in Bali, it's a different type of, like you were saying, it's a different type of person that it attracts. And where this is important and why this is such an important thing to talk about is the caliber, and I don't mean to put anyone on levels, but wherever you choose to place yourself in the market is where you set yourself up for your levels of joy, contentment and fulfillment. Because if you choose to be cheap, you're going to attract cheap clients, and with that comes its own set of challenges. If you choose to be expensive and you just do what it takes to get good enough to be able to be expensive without getting any friction, the effort that you expend by getting better leads to less effort in the delivery of what you're actually doing. So for us, it was like we're charging the most and we're receiving the least amount of friction. So for example, it took me a lot of effort to be able to get to the point where I can comfortably step into a room with Man United and cut their hair and be the guy who's, I'm here to cut your hair. You kick a ball, I cut hair. Most barbers wouldn't be doing that. They'd be like, oh, it's Man United. Deep down inside them, I'm not good enough to be here. So there's going to be friction. Whereas those guys, I could see it pretty clearly. It's like, well, we're so abundant with money. You know, we're football players. We're so abundant with money that this doesn't really mean that much to me. Same thing with like, if you can afford to go into Lamborghini, like that whole saying, what is it? Lamborghini don't need to do TV ads because the people who buy them aren't watching TV.
Yeah, genius.
You know?
Yep.
So how does that match up in the hair industry? And I think the mates rates thing is something that's born in the early development stages of somebody's career, and it never leaves them in some cases. And it's because of fear and a lack of education. Because if they got educated, they would eliminate the fear. You know, with that more knowledge comes a little bit less fear around it, because it turns emotion into logic. And then it just frees things up to actually create a life that you want to live. One thing that kills me inside is watching and observing business owners actually be employees to their clients.
Yep.
They're actually not making their own rules in their own business.
100%.
They're being employees to their clients. So they set the business up to have this freedom, yet it depends on the clients that they're given mace rates to over the years. And then they're afraid of losing those clients. Like, bro, I remember some of my clients in the past that used to get mace rates, and it wasn't me who set the precedent on the mace rates, it was the shop. And they've been coming there from the start, and like, you know, you're having conversations with guys. I remember one guy in particular, he'd come in with like his fucking bum bag or whatever, and it's full of money, and he's having conversations and gloating and pulling up in Lambos, and then he's owning like a massive construction company in Melbourne, and he was paying $50 a haircut even when it was gone up to 70, 80, whatever it was. But it was more of a self-importance thing. It's not that he couldn't afford it. He just saw me as somebody who is like way below him. So like, I'm doing you a favor by being here.
Yeah. And he employs you almost.
Yeah. So then we completely lose autonomy of our own lives. We completely lose our own choice when our lives and our businesses are designed to give us that. So why are we willingly giving it away?
Yeah.
And the way to solve that is actually, first of all, we say it all the time, get fucking better. Like, just get better first.
Yeah.
So good that the evidence is there to back it up, that you can then move to the next level. And then it just comes down to the art of communication. How are we communicating to our clients that it's worth more? And a lot of the time, you know, everybody that we work with in AMP, everybody that we work with in our coaching group, whenever they raise their prices, there's no friction because of the strategy and the stuff that we share with them. No friction. And the common theme is, I should have put it up more. I should have raised it more because there's no kickback.
And that's what gets exciting, right? But to your point of like the car thing, I love all of that. We got so much more to dig into. But the car thing, I had a real life experience of that. One of the guys that I know walked into Maserati and wanted one of the best ones you can get. He's got to wait like a year and a half to get it. He's like, I want that one. And they're like, yeah, it would be this. It was like, you know, multiple hundreds of thousands. He walks in, yeah, cool. He's like, oh, but I really like that other color. And they're like, oh, that's like 80,000 extra for this color. And he's like, oh yeah, go on then. Why not? Like, well, I'm spending this much money. Like, go on then. How's that? Sale done. Dude doesn't even get it for another year and a half yet. But that's the different caliber of client. So, you know, this is something that Seth Godin talks about the price and trust. You know, when you are more on the premium side of things, I'm not even going to use expensive because I feel like that expensive is subjective to anybody, right? I think to him $80,000 for a color wasn't expensive. Wasn't expensive. So what the fuck's $100 for a haircut? Exactly. And so, you know, being premium actually comes with assumed trust. He just trusted. He just walks in. Have you ever seen that video of Justin Bieber in his car and someone's asking him about the car?
No.
The dude's like, oh man, you got this. Like this, he's talking about the motor and the this and that. And Bieber's like, yeah. And then the guy's like, oh, what do you think about that? And he's like, I don't really know much about cars. He's like, I just like it.
Yeah.
It's just a different, it's the trust is there that it's fast, it's powerful, it's good. You know, it brings a different person. I'm sure that car would have cost him maybe $500,000, who knows, more. It's the same with a haircut. It's exactly the same with a haircut, and we've experienced this. I think the sweet spot is once you tipple over $80, I challenge most people to get to $80. Once you tipple over the $80 mark, you start to see a different psychology of people. There's a level of trust that just comes in. Because I think the far majority live under $80. And then once you get into that level, that you know, more premium range, I think it goes even more premium than that. But once you tipple over that, you start to see a shift in people. There is an assumed trust that the product must be at a certain level. And I experienced it. I remember when we started to go over those prices and I just get regular people wanting regular haircuts coming in. Sorry, not regular people, regular haircuts. Oh, this dude just wants like a 2-back in size and tapered out. Like, you know, obviously it was a high quality product. And I had to think to myself, I was like, what? Why is that? And then I looked into the psychology of it, and the people are just paying for trust. They're just paying, they're like, trust that I'm going to get a good job. I'm just going to pay for that.
Yeah.
So there's a psychology in price as well. So if you're at a cheap price because you're stuck in your conditioning and feel bad and pinching from the poor and all these things, you're going to keep attracting those people. And to them, you know, what's an extra $10 on a $100 haircut? Nothing.
No.
Because it's 10% of it. But what's an extra $10 on a $40 haircut? Seems quite a lot. It's a quarter of the price. So
we were talking about with tax yesterday. Right?
Yes. The
tax is the exact same.
It's the same thing. Yeah. So when you expand it out, when you bring up people up to a new level of awareness and you call them to a new level, it starts to get, I think it gets easier and easier and easier. And we know people that have gone to that $300 mark with no issue. And they attract a different type of person. Yeah, so when you expand all those numbers out, it doesn't look as bad, and I think it gets easier. Because like I was saying, you know, you bring those people to a new level, their awareness of money, they're like, oh, actually, yeah, I've been playing small. Those are small amounts of money, and we've experienced that ourselves. We're outlaying tens of thousands of dollars into coaches, and this $100 haircut, even it just looks like it's pennies, it's peanuts. Yeah. And that's where it's probably slightly easier for us to talk about these things because we've gone through the journey of outlaying large sums of money for certain things. There are things that we can't even see a lot of the time. Like it's not tangible things we can even touch. It's hot air a lot of the time. It's advice and words and experience. So, but now that's why we look at a haircut and think that's not the highest leverage thing I could be doing. And because of the payoff of what you get for it, it's such a small amount. Now, take that how you want to. That's going to rub some people up the wrong way. But it's important to think about life that way. You know, your effective hourly rate, what is it that you're doing with your time?
Well, the clients who are coming to you for a haircut are also thinking about their effective hourly rate.
Of course they are.
And for a lot of the guys, especially somebody like your client who went to Maserati, it's probably a bit of an inconvenience for him to be going and getting a haircut. So for me now, these days, when I was in Bali, for example, I would put my haircut off. I was like, oh, I'll go get a haircut tomorrow. I'll go get it today. But it didn't come at the cost of there was more important things in my life that I wanted to do over me going to get a haircut. But the thing was, if I was going to go and get a haircut, I wanted to make sure that it was a good one because I didn't want to go twice. So it's actually a thing of people who value their time will pay more for a haircut because they don't want to get it done twice. So they're paying for the trust that it's going to be done well the first time. And that's I get it is. And I don't want to waste the time trying to fix this. I'm worried about it and all that kind of stuff. No, I'll pay someone hundreds of dollars to do something for me just because I value my time so much that I don't, I just trust that if they're charging that much money, that it must be a good thing.
And there's a psychology there as well. It's the thing that they want. I think there's a different mentality there. They understand that it's also something that they want. They understand that. And they go, so if I want this thing, I'm just going to pay to get it because I value my time. I just want to get it. I just want to get it and then not have to worry about it.
And this is also an issue for barbers who think that in order to go to 100 to 200 to 300, that they have to pull more rabbits out of more hats. No. They have to add extra services and they have to add extra things. If anything, when people pay priority to go on a plane or business class or anything of that, it's for ease and convenience and so that they can get on and off the plane
and
before anyone else.
Trust.
It's a quicker thing. If you can get the same result in 30 minutes versus 1 hour, it makes way more sense for the Maserati buyer versus the person who's down at the discount store, cheapest chips, the one down the road here and looking for the bargains. What is that saying? You value your money more than you value your time.
Yep.
And
that's a dangerous game to play.
Dangerous game to play because the smart people realize that the more time I have, the more money I can make with that time.
There you go.
So I can imagine your client who went to the Maserati place. I'm almost imagining who it is. I'm guessing almost who it is. It's a case of I'm just going to pay for the things that I want and I'm going to pay for them out of convenience for giving me more time so I can continue to make more things and get more things that I want.
So that is the story because he's not getting the car for a year and a half, right? With this, wherever it's getting made and imported. I don't even know if the thing is even in production yet, but that's kind of how Maserati do it. And I'm sure Ferrari do it and Lamborghini do it. There's magic in that as well because there's something we teach, but we can go into that in another pod. But he knows in that time he's probably going to make that money back and more.
Yeah. He might have made that money that week.
He might have made back already. Yeah.
It's not it's a different level of thinking. You know, when we often talk about calibers and levels and different types of clients and different mindset, often it's the level of expansion of the mind.
Yes.
That's really what it is. It's how expansive am I looking at this human experience versus how contracted am I within it? And the barbering and hair industry is one of the most contracted industries of them all. It is so out of touch when it comes to mindset and how to see things. We follow and look up to and we're coached by and we're in environments where people are making what barbers make in a year in a day regularly, and it's normal. It's normal.
Well, one of the coaches that I follow, we're not coached by this particular coach, but I think it was the first 7 days of January, they'd made a barber's yearly wage.
Yeah.
The first 7 days.
Yeah.
Just think about leveraging time.
Yeah.
Products.
Well, like,
There's a whole mentality that comes with that, right?
I don't think we give ourselves enough credit sometimes either as to like where we've got to from barbering to now.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning, like, because anyone who's listening to us on long form deserves to hear this.
Yeah.
But last week, the week before I came back to Bali, we generated as a business half of what I would have made in a year in the barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
In 1 week.
In 1 week.
In 1 week.
Yeah.
So if that isn't evidence and proof enough that it's just about being around people who are thinking in a certain way, then I don't know what is.
Mm.
Now, these people, like the football players, for example, they're paying for safety and trust too. They were paying $300, $400 for their haircuts. But the very reason that we were in the room was enough evidence for them to pay that money, because they knew what they were getting was good. We're not going to be there if we're not good. Said this before.
Guys, and trust me, like the opposite is also true. You know, when you are cheaper doesn't build trust. It just doesn't. So, and that's where the trap is, because a lot of people want to people please and please as many people as they can, and that's their own shadow work to do. That's their own story to dig through. You need to get over that one as well, which, you know, I have compassion because we've all been there. The gauge of a good barber isn't how many people you can please. I don't think anymore.
You know, one of the problems is, bro, sorry to interrupt, but while it's on my mind, one of the problems is it's what the leaders within the barbershop industry and space are saying to their teams.
Yep.
They're trying to manipulate them into, like, look, this is a very broad statement, and whoever's listening to this, don't take it wrong. It's just, I've seen it generally happen over the years, and there's a few people that aren't doing this, of course, but they're not educating their teams to see it in a different way. Mm-hmm. So they're educating them into contraction rather than educating them into expansion.
Yep.
And using them as cogs in their system, which is not just in the barbering industry, it's across all industries.
Yep.
Because once we expand them, we lose them.
Yeah. And people get scared of that, right? Like there's the fear of change. All I hear in that is the fear of change. Mm. And then it's like the hunter-gatherer thing.
Fear of the inevitable.
Fear of the inevitable.
How fucking stupid is that?
Well, what does Peter Brown always say? You know,
it's like, fear. Why do we have the fear of the inevitable? Everything changes. The weather changes. We may as well be afraid of the sun coming out then.
But this is where we got to, though. People are afraid. They are. So to the very fact... Sorry, guys, we're going on a rabbit hole here, but this is what you get on Unlimited. If you complain about the weather, I'm sorry, but you're mental. Nah, that was a nasty way to say it. But there's no point. And this is why I love studying like Buddhist philosophy. And that's why I hang out with the monks, because they don't complain about that stuff. Why? Because they know it's a silly thing to complain about. What does Peter Crone say? What's the only constant? One of the only constants in life is change. And what is the only thing that we can be sure of? We can only be sure of the thing that we just don't know what's coming.
Yeah,
that's all we know. We just don't know what's coming. So the faster we can be okay with change and the inevitable of we just don't know what's coming, you know, then we can get to work and do things that are going to move the needle forward. But if we stay in that place of always worrying about change and fear and the inevitable, people change everything. It's one of the only constants in life. Mm. And again, like you said, to restrict people back into that box, it just says more about you than it does about them. But I have compassion, because, you know, we're not taught this from a young age. You know, we're not taught to be overly expansive.
No,
because
the
systems that we work in aren't expansive.
Yeah.
And that's one of the dangers and the beautiful thing and the exciting thing about where we're going. It's 2024 now, guys. There's never been more ways to make money. It's never been easier to be expansive. You know, it's out there. It's all out there. And now it's about finding those people that can help you do it.
Mm. Yeah, that's the trick, really. You know, and that's why I love what we do so much. And, you know, take it as you want. Take it as much of a sales pitch as you want. but I'm equally happy if you go and get the help from someone else, like someone like Deluxe. We were talking about it last night. He's changed the fucking industry.
Yep.
He's changed the game by talking about things that nobody wants to talk about.
That people are too afraid to talk about, yeah. And we were having this chat earlier. It's going to be interesting this year when we go to the UK, you know, when we're in the Barber Bash and we're doing these shows and we're on stage in front of a different audience, right? A relatively restrictive audience. And I can say that because we're from there.
But the proof,
I know exactly.
Like, we're getting it on messages. Like, there's so many layers of evidence and proof that we can attest to prove that everything we're talking about right now matters. Like, because the opposite is at play.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really having many conversations with barbers that are talking about this type of stuff.
No.
Because they're identifying too much with the label of a barber.
Yeah.
And that is fucking dangerous. And even this morning, I watched a live. I've tuned into an Instagram live briefly with two of the, you know, you could say leading barbers in the hair industry. And one of them was talking about, like, I think it was something along the lines of, I can't, look, it's probably not even worth explaining, but he was still charging £20 for a haircut. Yeah. That's kind of what he alluded to. And I was just thinking, £20? And I mean this in the nicest way possible. I wouldn't fucking get out of bed for it.
No.
Like, the level of expansion that we have got to in our business, it's like we just paid somebody $2,000 to come on our podcast. A barber, by the way, which is why we're supporting the next generation.
This is my mentality. If that was me now, like £20 for a haircut, that 45 minutes to an hour, I'd rather pay that person not to do it and ideate and sit there and write. I'd rather take that hour, 45 minutes to stay at home and just write and come up with new ideas that are going to make me astronomically more money. Now, there is no way. I just wouldn't do it. Yeah. That's just not happening.
But that's why eventually we had this, like, I've definitely, you know, I'm speaking for myself in terms of my career. There was times when I was in the barbershop and I was running Area Academy, and when that was all starting, I was like, I can't, like, I understand that jump in the performance curve.
Yeah. I
can't be here doing this.
No.
Like, my time, we need to leverage my time in order to get this moving.
Yeah.
Because, like, at a certain point of that business, I was the only one who could move it forward.
Yeah.
So if I was the only one who could move it forward, why am I cutting hair?
Yeah.
So what I did was, guys, and this is something I would advise to everybody, is I looked at the idea. So the idea matters, but the skills, knowledge and expertise is what's going to get you the execution and result on the idea. But without time, you can't do anything. You can't do any of that. You can't execute on any of the ideas.
Yep.
And it's the ideas that are going to make you money, not the working on an hourly rate.
Yeah. Because all ideas get stale, you know, because barbering is just, cutting hair is just one idea. But that idea has been around for 120 years now. Like, when did barbering probably ever get anywhere near commercial? Probably early 1900s, right? It was probably being done before that, but it probably got a bit more commercial 1900s. So let's say we're like 120 years in, right? Mm. It's like, that's just one idea though. And all ideas get stale. It doesn't mean you don't do the thing, but it's thinking about how can we reinvent it, because the only inevitable is change. Mm. Because if we get stuck in the conviction that the thing just has to stay the way it is, we get left behind. And one of the things we do best as humans is we adapt. Those who adapt survive. It's just one of the laws of nature. So that's, I think, is having courage to adapt and not being afraid to rock the boat. Mm. Guys, the world's very safe. Like, I know there's a lot of shit going on in the world, I know that, but in general terms, in your own backyard's fairly safe for most people that are going to be listening to this. Don't be afraid to rock the boat. And one of the dangers that I always talk about, which I feel very strongly about, is, you know, the danger of using your primary income as your only income. Like, that is where a lot of barbers are. And a lot of barbers think that barbering is the only thing they are going to do and they can do. It's the only way they're ever going to make money. Because they're identifying as, I am a barber. Yeah. Which is very dangerous, like you said, because I like to flip it on its head. You're not a barber first and a human second. You're a human first and a barber second. You're a human who just happens to do hair. You're also a human that happens to love, to feel, to eat, to this, that you're also a barber, you're also a human, that can have multiple streams of income. You're also a person that can ideate, that can share, that can read, that can tell stories, that can teach, that can all of these empower. And so when you realize that, it's like, oh, how am I leveraging my time? And is giving a mate's rate leveraging your time? No. Like I said, I'd rather pay you not to do it. I'm like, I'll just give you the $20, pounds, not to cut your hair, so I can ideate and come up with a process to make me way more money than that. Yeah. But again, you got to have a little bit of delayed gratification, you got a bit of courage, you got a bit of humility, and you got to be able to be okay with not being seen like right now. Yeah. And knowing that, trusting and believing that the better fruits are coming.
100%. Well, at a certain point, cutting hair was costing me more than it was making me.
Same.
And even now, it's the same stuff.
Same, yeah.
It's actually costing us more than it's making us. And it was really easy to have that mates rates conversation when it came to that point, because I had built my skills, built my knowledge, built my expertise, viewed the world in a different way, always kept connecting it to an outcome. It's like, okay, well, what's the outcome here? What's this designed to do? Like, I would rather build my business to serve my life than build my life to serve my business.
Yep.
So when that flipped and I realized, oh, everything we've been told is a lie up to this point, because it's designed to psychologically trap us in a system that works for a few people rather than working for myself, then that's when the game changed. And it was really easy to have that conversation with clients, because it's like, well, when a client was talking to me, oh, you put your prices up, because I went from 80 to 120 before I went again to 150. It's like 80 to 120 is quite a big jump. It's 50% jump in price.
Yeah.
And this is where I think a lot of it gets confused. Is I did that in order to buy my time back so I could work on something else that was making me money.
More.
Yeah. And the problem that a lot of people have in understanding it is, right now cutting hair is their only source of income.
Yeah.
So that's where it's misunderstood.
And that's what I mean. Using your primary as your only source is dangerous. If you've got nothing else to work on, all of this seems like a conversation. Yeah, sorry for you guys. But it's like, yeah, but we were also in that position once as well. But we took the humility and the plunge and the courage to go, you know what? This isn't how I can best serve. This isn't how I can best leverage my time. I'm going to do something about this. Buy back some time and work on the thing that's going to drive my life forward and bring joy.
And bring us up on that performance curve.
Yep.
In bigger chunks.
Yeah.
Now, the important thing to remember there is when you do have the next idea and you do the next thing, that's why getting into something like education is really cool. Because if you get good enough at the thing, you can make a lot more margin and money and make a lot more impact as well as income by doing that and having good systems and structures in place in order to then scale that as a business. Now, when I was having conversations with clients, it was really easy to discuss the price increase because it was like, okay, well, if you think this is expensive, this is actually costing me money by being here and cutting your hair, because in the hour that I'm spending cutting your hair, I could be coming up with an idea or generating a piece of content or putting out a post or selling a workshop that is worth 10 times, 15, 20, I don't even know. Say for our workshops costs $1,000 a ticket for conversation's sake, or even $3,000, right? We'll talk about the 3-day course right now. $3,000 a ticket. I'm pretty confident right now that with the skills, knowledge and expertise that I've built up over the years, if you gave me an hour and you said, all right, Eoin, your goal for this next hour is to sell a ticket to the 3-day course, it would take me less effort than cutting someone's hair to sell that course. Yeah. And that's 30, you heard it here, that's 30 $100 haircuts.
Yeah. That's almost someone's week's worth of cutting. It's not far off.
For one, so let's just take that, that's 1 hour.
That's 1 hour.
1 hour out of a potential 40 that I was working in the barbershop. So now, give me 1 week to sell it and I still bring in more money than most barbers. Yeah. If you said to me, okay, I'll give you 1 week to sell a ticket to a course. Yeah. It's so easy. And the reason I can do it in an hour is because of the brand that I've built over the years and the consistency. I figured out the other day, when I looked at all of my Instagram posts, 2,212 posts, I think it was. If you put that into the equivalent of years, that's posting every day for 6 years, 3 weeks and 1 day.
Massive.
So
who's doing that consistency?
It's very easy to talk about all of this in theory, but without the undeniable stack of proven evidence backing it up, the foundation, there's no net to fall onto. So that's where I'm a little bit concerned with some of the younger barbers putting their prices up too quickly, because is the evidence there to back it up?
Yeah.
And do they have these other ideas that they're working on? So I often say this to our clients in the mentorship program. It's like, the only reason I was able to do that so confidently, the 50% price increase jump, was because I had another thing, and the other thing was also making money.
Yeah.
So this was my main source of income here. That was my 100% capacity of what I was making every week. And I needed to and I started, in my spare time, I had to get this other thing off the ground. And then eventually one outweighs the other. And then it tips, and it's like, all right, well, I can no longer do this now because it doesn't make sense anymore.
That's the magic sauce. I've heard so many great entrepreneurs say that. Yeah. Gary Vee talks about it. Warren Buffett talks about it. I remember when back in the day when I wanted to get into the YouTube game, people were asking, well, how do you just go YouTube full time? They said the same thing. You start the thing while you're doing your full-time job, build it and build it and build it, and eventually once it outweighs, then you just drop that other thing away, or you cut it down or drop it away, and then you go again. So if somebody wants to build a product company or this or that or that, it's not just like this or that, it's an and world.
Yeah.
And a lot of barbers, I think when you're trying to build that foundation and your brand and all of that, it's an and world. You cut hair, and you're a content creator, and you're a family man, and you're a businessman, and you're this, until you could get to the point where you can choose. And you can maybe outsource some of the other shit, you can stay in your zone of genius. But yeah, my clients are the same. My clients understand that. I say this all the time. I'm like, dude, this is not my highest leverage activity. I was like, the hour that I spend cutting your hair, I could be on an hour sales calls and be closing.
Driving in the car is more valuable to you than cutting someone's hair right now.
It is.
Unless you're creating content while you're doing it.
Exactly.
And then it becomes high level.
And sometimes that is the case. A lot of just a camera rolling. I'm just going to talk into the camera. So lots of things happen in the drive. It gives me, I think for a bit. I kind of plan out my drives. I start out and I think, just quiet. I just see the sunrise. It's nice. And then I might, if there's an idea, I might talk about it. And then sometimes there might be a call that I need to jump on. And then there's a podcast. So there's just so many. That to me, to get that chunk done is worth its weight in gold. You do that every day.
Well, sometimes learning is more important than earning.
Yes.
Sometimes scheduling time for learning is more important than earning in that moment, depending on how much you're earning in that moment.
Yeah.
And, like we were saying already, the most dangerous thing that people can identify with is the label of a barber.
Yeah.
Because the label of a barber can only get you so far. Now there's people pushing the upper limits of that. HH is one of them, because he's charging $300 a haircut. And that's pushing the outer limits, but there's still a limit.
There's still a limit to how many of those he can do.
I don't look at that and think that's still something I want to do.
No.
It's really interesting.
It's not leveraging time.
It's not leveraging.
It is in a sense compared to a lot of other barbers, but it's still not leveraging time in terms of options and choice.
Yeah.
It's so psychological. The matrix is just the start. That's a small hurdle. When we really expand that out to the whole conversation, the matrix thing's just a small hurdle. Let's just get yourself back to zero. Before you ever even want to scale, think about building your business, putting your prices up. First thing you got to do is cut out the matrix. Immediately, that's almost like a price rise for yourself. Get rid of cut the fat. Get rid of the base rates and the discounts for this person. Too many options on your price list, because too many options on your price list probably means that you're losing money. Again, what does HH do? Two things: haircut and beard. That's it. That's all you got. It's your only choices. Simple. Double down on the things that you love doing, the things that you're good at, the things that are the high ticket. Just double down. Too many options, you're probably losing money.
Yeah.
Leverage your time. And just get there, just get back to zero before you think about, I want to be this, I want to be that. Fill all the holes. Fill the holes first. Level the surface, and then build. But the filling the holes isn't often something you can touch or feel. It's in here.
Yeah, it's all a mentality.
It's all mentality, and we see that time and time again in our coaching group. It's not about what they have to do, it's how they have to think. And we've seen it time and time and time again. There's guys cutting the same way they've cut hair for the last 3-4 years. All of a sudden they've exponentially grown in their price rise. Why? Because we helped them to think it a different way. And one of the biggest things we help them to do is to not get emotional about their business decisions. A lot of people get too emotional. So I love this because this fits into mates rates so well. What's the fear of guilt on mates rates? It's emotion. That's emotion. That's not logic. That's emotion. Because most people you ask, you think, is that logical? They'll go, no, it doesn't feel good. Like that, it doesn't make sense. You go, okay, so you're putting your emotions over your logic. And in business,
And they know they're doing it.
and they know they're doing it. But again, their needs sit above their values. So their values are, I want to be a great business person. I want to be seen this way. This is what I believe, blah, blah, blah. But the story in their head, which creates their needs, which wants to be fed, outweighs their values. And we help people to try and put that, quieten down that emotion, strengthen your value so you understand who it is and what you're doing, and live virtuously through those values. Once you get to that point, that to me is one of the only ways you can actually start to build and scale. But you've got to get to that point first. You've got to fill holes, fill gaps, and get back to a place where you can think logically, not emotionally about business. Because those, I think, it's like stock market, right? If you get emotional about the stock market, you're probably going to lose your money.
Yeah.
Just get logical about it. It's like day traders 101, right? I remember I used to do a lot of research on day trading, and one of the first rules is don't get emotional about your investment. Don't get emotional about, it's going to go high here, is it going to go there? It was like, only allocate that day, because day traders, it's in the name, they work on a day. Only allocate what you can afford to lose and have a cut-off time. If you put that money on the market between 9 and 11, that's all you do.
Yeah.
Don't get emotional and think, what's it going to do at 1? Oh, could I get more? I mean, blah, blah. 9, 11, that's it. Just logic. And that's business. Now, the values can be more emotional. That plays into a life well lived. But again, like you said, are we building a business to serve our life, or a life that serves the business? Need a business that serves the life. But you can only do that when you get back to that ground zero. Most people are on basement level right now.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's what I'm excited to do this year. I think this is what we're so both excited to do this year is we're going global. We're going to the UK, we're going to Europe, London, Ireland, Manchester, Amsterdam, all these cool places. Who knows? America could be on the cards. Like there's all these, there's people everywhere that I'm talking to. It's going to be so exciting to take this to all these different places.
100%.
And just level everybody up.
Happens.
Yeah.
I think the thing that we can help people with the most is their belief systems. And a lot of the time, it's just transferring like that logic across in what we're doing with our education, with this podcast, with everything that we do. A lot of it does come back to just internal belief systems, and giving people mates rates is keeping you stuck in your limits. It's keeping people stuck in their limits. And we get, as humans, sometimes attached to those limits. People will fight for their limitations more than they'll fight for their unlimitations, like becoming unlimited. And like you were saying, and another way to frame what you were saying, it's not necessarily about what it is that you need to do, it's how you need to see it and what you need to think about. But to go one level further, it's who you need to become and who you need to see yourself as in order to make these decisions really easy. Because if you don't see yourself as that person, you can't make the decision.
It's impossible.
If you don't identify with it, you can't make the decision. So, for example, when I was a cyclist, when I was pursuing pro cycling, if I didn't see myself as somebody who could be a pro cyclist, I would never have been a pro cyclist. you know, if barbers are seeing themselves as, I'm never going to get to $100 a haircut, of course you're not going to get to $100 a haircut, because your actions aren't going to follow the identity. So
whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right both times.
Yeah, and it's a cliche thing, but it's got a lot of truth to it. And that simple statement develops and builds more momentum and meaning the longer it goes on for people. So, mate traits, they're psychologically damaging. And the reason they're psychologically damaging is because it's not that you're doing somebody else a favour by charging them less. It's that you're confirming your own limitations of yourself. You're confirming to yourself that I am not worth my services, my knowledge, my expertise isn't worth more than X amount for this person.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's always going to hold you back, because it's a stunt in your growth. Like, the people that we were friends with when we were kids are not the same people that we're friends with now. Why do we feel like we need to keep our clients at a certain level? It's like in that show, The Chosen, that I watched about Jesus and the story of Jesus. When he went back to Nazareth, the tall poppy syndrome thing came in, and just because people grew up with him, they were like, you're not Jesus. Like, we'll kill you, basically, for saying that. Like, we'll sentence you to death for claiming that you're the prophet or the Messiah. And it's quite often that it's our families and our friends and our mate traits people that are going to be the people who kill your dreams. They're going to be the ones who crush your passion, kill your dreams, and keep you stuck exactly where it is that you are right now, because they don't want you to change, because the way where you fit into their life right now works for them. So the real clients and the real ones are happy to see you progress and move on. I got to the point where when I dropped hair completely, all of the clients that I spoke to were really happy for me to move on, because they could see it coming.
Yep.
But because I educated them on my journey, and I think that's something that's missing. We always talk about how we need to keep educating our clients on what this is that we do, but we also need to educate them on how we view the world. Because how we view the world changes. I was educating my clients on my business journey. I told them that I invested $50,000 in a coach, and that changed it for them. When every decision that I made after that, they were like, oh, this isn't just coming from my emotions.
Yeah.
This isn't coming from my feelings about, it's not coming from a reactive state. It's coming from a very proactive, planned out, mapped out place. Hence why we tell our clients now, it's like, well, if your clients have anything to say about it, speak to my coach.
Yeah.
They can come and speak to us if they want.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I stopped cutting, I just, as an experiment, put my prices up to $1,000 on my booking page, and I got no bookings. And that was the point.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why it's there, and I think it might be still there, but one of the reasons why it's there is so that if anybody does have something to say, I say, well, what's expensive? Because my coach charges $1,000. So, like,
yeah,
people will probably say it.
And that's still not the high end of it, right? There's that guy in New York who charges $2,500 for a haircut, and he's booked. It's not even the end of it, you know. And so the really damaging thing that I think,
one thing there, so sorry,
yeah,
he's booked because of how he's communicated what it is that he's doing,
and it's brand building.
So what the barber who cuts hair at $50 and the barber who cuts hair at $300. So look at Henry, right? There's barbers in Melbourne that are cutting hair as good as Henry, charging anywhere between $30 and $50. And there's some really good barbers. Henry's cutting hair at $300. But it's the actions, behaviors, and identity, and how Henry sees himself and communicates that to his audience is why he's charging $300 and they're charging $50.
And that leads beautifully into what I was going to say about, like, beliefs. Beliefs are stories that you've been told. Oftentimes you haven't made those stories for yourself. And this is where it's exciting, because, like we said at the start, you managed to train yourself out of it. So did I. in a slightly different way. That means I have compassion for a lot of barbers who do feel stuck because your beliefs about you're not worth it, that's too expensive, that's not a fair price, it's not worth it. All of that is just a story that you've often inherited. Most people got given that belief. Most of our beliefs, before they would come into our awareness and our consciousness and our conscious awareness, were given to us because we were children at one point. We had to learn off somebody, and those closest to us actually gave us, and God probably say gifted us those stories and those beliefs, but they don't have to be the beliefs that you have your whole life. They're definitely the reason you are where you are, but they don't have to be the excuse of where you're going to stay. So there was a study done about what was one of the biggest influences on those that did well, those that were expansive, those that are like quote unquote successful, and those that weren't, especially financially. It was postcode. They found that your postcode influenced your expansiveness and your success. It's really interesting. So that means environment is key. That means whatever environment you grew up in is the belief system that you will inherit. And inherit is the key word there. Because if you grew up in an environment which gives you an expansive belief system and story, it's going to be different. But if you don't, it's going to be also very different. So the exciting thing is both of those live simultaneously in the world at any given time. There are people in complete poverty, and there are people in complete abundance and success, for quote unquote, financially. So what's saying that one person can't get to the other one? Well, the start is the story that you inherited. And the cool thing there is, that's why I have compassion for this, is once you become aware of that, sometimes that's the only thing anyone ever needs to hear. It's like, it's not your fault you think this way. You inherited this story, this belief. What you believe right now, you didn't choose. But now you know. And what do you want to choose now? Because you can rewrite the story.
Yeah.
And that is where it starts. And barbers just need to hear that more than anybody, because that's too expensive, that's not fair, that blah, 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 blah. That's just a story from postcodes that also believe the same thing. Because there are other postcodes that believe differently.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding. The internet's a big place. There are people charging anything, like you said, from $30 all the way to $2,500 for a single haircut.
Yeah.
So who's right, who's wrong, everything in between is the myriad of stories that people tell themselves, and the stories that they've inherited and then chosen to change. And that is exactly what you did. You chose to change your story and your beliefs. That's how you trained your way out of it. So did I. I built levels of evidence that started to reshape my beliefs, and then I consciously chose to change that story. And so I have compassion because the matrix is the story that you've inherited. I get that. But if it's choice, it's okay. But oftentimes it's not, because we're bending the knee for those that say they want it. And that's not our choice. We're just giving into it through a subconscious story and a belief.
Yeah.
That's just what we have to do.
And actually, if we reframe the matrix by giving the person the discounted haircut, we're actually not helping them to change their story either.
No.
Because they think they need the discount in order to be able to afford it, which actually keeps them at a level of contraction as well.
And we're doing both people a disservice.
Yeah.
We do ourselves a disservice because we can't feed our family. Secondly, we're doing the person a disservice because we're not helping them to level up and see a new life and a new story for themselves, which this is a whole nother podcast in its own, and we've spoken about this before, but that's leadership. When you can look at yourself, level stage 5 leader, this is like Jesus level, right? Jesus walked around and didn't care what anybody said. He was like, no, I'm so firm in my beliefs and my virtue that I'm going to be who I am and say what I want to say, believe what I want to believe at all times through choice. That's the difference.
And sometimes it's that thing, right? Like, you need to hear new voices, and Jesus had a voice. He had the communication channel to the higher power. So he had the voice, which led to a new choice. So that new voices leads to new choices piece is it, because if it wasn't for the internet, I would be living a very contracted life.
Same.
Luckily for me, early days, I clocked that people's opinions and beliefs and limitations were quite often being projected onto me, and I didn't buy into it. I remember one of my cycling coaches, early days, I was only 16, 17. I used to travel 2 hours in the morning in freezing cold Ireland to go and train with him. And I remember one time him telling me that, only a few people ever make it to like pro level. I'd be looking at like college and studying and just, doing all that. And it was in that moment, like my psychology didn't question it. I was just like, I need a new voice. Like, he's not the one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I need some, like, I'm not listening to that. I'm discarding that information because I understood that that's his limiting belief, because he didn't make it pro. So I was like, okay, I need to find someone who did,
yeah,
and like listen to them.
And we've had these conversations over the last couple of days, haven't we? Like, our experiences growing up in sport, and like,
yeah,
I was so fortunate in my hockey career. I heard something early that stuck with me. So there was a guy that noticed my talent early and just said, if you don't play for England, I'll be damned. And it didn't, and I was young enough for that to imprint, and that just resonated. I didn't care what anybody said. I was like, this one man said, and I respected him as well. He was the manager of the whole club. Respected him. I was like, he was older, and he'd seen a lot of people come and go before me, and he trained some of the best. And there were people at the club that were amazing. I was like, well, he clearly knows something about something.
Mm.
And that just resonated. It just resonated through. I didn't care. We saw other coaches come and go, and some were good and some were shit. And I remember there was one particular team that I played in, and the coach was one of the guys' dads, and he used to hammer us. Absolutely hammer us, beat us down. Oh, you're not doing this right, blah, blah, blah. And even when we would win, it would feel horrible. I was like, I don't even care about that win because of everything that happened in between time. But the resonating tone in that was, if you don't do this, I'll be damned, because you're that talented. And I was like, cool, that was the voice. I didn't care about the guy trying to put us down and, you're a shit. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because someone's seen something, and that was the voice that resonated through all of the other shit. It's the same with you. Somewhere, something shaped your psychology to think, no, that guy's that's disempowerment. Like, no. Yeah, I need a different voice.
I didn't associate. I just didn't associate with it.
Yeah.
I didn't identify with that as my thing. I was like, I saw myself as somebody who can do more than that.
This is what I'm trying not to. I'm trying to be very careful on my language this year. I always say, this is what I don't understand, but I do understand. I can believe it because it's happening. But do barbers not think, fuck that, I can do this? Where's that gone?
It's back.
It is?
I think it's back.
Okay, good.
Look at Billy, who just joined us.
Yeah.
I think the next wave.
Yes, I think it's the next wave.
Because now they're seeing is believing. And Henry has a lot to do with that.
Yes.
With H.H. Barbers has a lot to do with that, because it's seeing is believing.
These guys stuck in UK or wherever, like £20 a haircut less. Like, do they not just wake up one day and think, no, fuck this. I can be a £50 to £100 hairdresser. I can do this. Where's the grit gone? Where's the I'm going to find a way gone? All right, I don't know how to do it now. How do I learn to get there? How can I get there?
They prefer to pretend to get there than actually get there.
Because I know...
And that's harsh. That sounds harsh.
But
like, we're just... They're the flexiest people there is. They have all of the gear.
We're theorizing here. We're trying to dig out the psychology. But like, I know what you're like and I know what I'm like. The dog would come out eventually. And we'd be like, fuck this. We've done it in our own business. We're the most expensive education business in Australia. Like, why? People have told us, now you can't charge that. No, don't do that, don't do that. No, fuck this. No, I'm not going to let your limiting story tell me, like, that can't be done. It's like, if you think it can't be done, let's try and find a way that's equally as exciting.
Well, it's not. This is the other side of things. It's just not done from an emotional place.
No.
I didn't emotionally think I'm worth...
No,
whatever, how many thousands of dollars. It's like, no, like,
because that's the other thing. People, that whole worth thing, charge what you're worth, know what you're worth. That's an emotion. That's not logic. Because a logic's a calculation. Like effective hourly rate and knowing what you're worth are the same thing. One's logic, one's emotion.
Yeah.
Knowing what I'm worth is emotion.
Yeah.
Because you're getting all up in your feels about it. Effective hourly rate, it's the exact same thing. It's a logic. It's calculation. And I think if you can separate those two, that's a task for all barbers listen to this. Anybody in business listen to this. Think about that. What's your effective hourly rate? Like, what's your value an hour? Not what are you worth, because that gets emotional. It's your effective hourly rate. Huge. Yeah. And then you see if you can think about giving out mates rates.
Yeah.
Because you won't want to.
Yeah, well, one of the guys that we follow very closely in the coaching world, his effective hourly rate, he figured out the other day was $6,000 an hour. And another one that's very closely related and linked to him said his was like $5,000 an hour. So being in that environment and having that as the voice and having that as the normal makes a lot of other stuff just seem irrelevant. It's like we're playing in different leagues. Do you think, Cristiano Ronaldo is listening to the Sunday League guy talk, like if someone came up and gave him tips on how to take a free kick?
Yeah.
It's like, no, like I've been training like a pro since I'm a kid. Like I do pro things and I'm the best that there is.
Yep.
Like when I was a cyclist and that happened, I just didn't listen to it. I picked up that it was a limitation, that it wasn't coming from a logical place. It was a limitation. It was an emotional thing because he hadn't done that himself. Whereas if it was, quite often some of the best coaches in cycling weren't ever really good cyclists. So they've removed the emotion and the trauma from not getting there. Because like a lot of people will coach others to do the same shit that they've done so that they can confirm their own kind of biases, and it makes them feel good. Because if other people aren't making it, it was okay that I didn't.
Yep.
So yeah, I was able to kind of drown out the noise and say, okay, well, I have 2 arms and 2 legs and equal opportunities as anyone else. Like, what did the pros do? So if and this is the same thing for hair. It's like, look at somebody's career that you like and want to be like, and dissect it, research it, do a little bit of like theoretics on it, and just think, okay, well, what did he do? And how can I do that? And if I want to be charging $100 a haircut, if I want to be a pro cyclist, I have to do professional things. I have to do the things that a $100 barber will do. And if I don't do those things, I won't charge $100 a haircut. So it's like, what did I do in cycling? I lived and trained like a professional. And lo and behold, what happened? I became a professional. If you're wanting to become a professional, but you're living and training like an amateur, don't be surprised when you have amateur results. And that's what's happening in barbering. People aren't training and educating themselves and living a lifestyle like a professional, like a business person, like somebody who deserves that money. And their clients feel it. Their clients know it because there's no conviction in it.
Yeah, there's an unspoken energy.
Yeah.
There's a subconscious energy going on that immediately the client picks up on it and goes, yep, I'm in control here.
Yeah.
I've got authority here.
Yeah.
You work for me.
Yeah. So the best thing you can do is surround yourself with people who are in that energy. And that might be, again, letting go of your labels and moving outside of the space. Like when I first went and joined K2 and like went into all these other coaching containers, nobody in barbering is doing this. Nobody. They might get to the point where they're just about to do it, but then their labels stop them. You know plenty of barbers and hairdressers and business owners who have gone to the same things that we've gone to and then just canned it. No, I'm not spending that much money because I know what it takes to make that much money, but got news for you. It costs money to make money.
Yeah.
You just have to spend that money. And one of the main reasons that like people don't is because they're probably stuck in giving mates rates and losing so many thousands of dollars a year. One thing I would implore people to do listening to this is calculate how much it's costing you per year. And every time it comes up in real life as a situation, connect it back to that number.
Yeah.
Every time you're about to give someone a mates rate, connect it back to the bigger number. And it's all well and good while you're young in the game and you don't have any responsibilities. But what happens when you have a child? You're going to let your kid go hungry. And
got a mortgage.
I said this on a coaching call. I'm going to say it. It's fucking savage, but I'm going to say it. It's not truth in reality, but it is truth in behavior. But most barbers who have kids and are stuck in that cycle, so that's a niche, are demonstrating through their behaviors that they actually care more about their clients than they do about their kids.
Yep.
And to their kids, they're going to pick up on that as, why are you giving this person so much attention, love and care? And here I am sitting waiting for you to come home and you're just cutting people's hair. They don't get it.
They don't get it, and because the rationale's not built right. And Ty Lopez says the same thing. There is scientific evidence in psychology to show this. People say, and this is not my opinion, this is the evidence, right? People will say that they love their kids more than anything in the world, but the psychology shows that no one loves anything more in the world than themselves. So, I put my kid before everything. I do this, like anything. We've all heard it. But people don't, unless they're conscious. So, and I have compassion for that, because that's where that plays out. People actually care about themselves more than anything in the world. Anything. Mm-hmm. The child is very close, very, very close. But you still care about yourself more. And if we could just understand that fact and bring that into our conscious awareness, we can shift the paradigm a little bit, and we can choose to play that game a little bit better. Because if we leave that to our unconscious is just always going to come out with us caring about ourselves more than other. Now, that's not an issue if that's what you choose to do. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. But once it comes into consciousness, then it becomes a choice. And then you can rewrite that story. And you cannot let it go, because one of the things that we always talk about in our coaching group is, do your actions meet your words? Do your words correlate with your actions? If you say, I love my child more than anything in the world, it comes before everything else, it's like, well, does it though? Do they?
It's taking that emotion that comes up in that statement, and actually acting upon it and allowing your behaviors to meet what you're saying. And that's going to only prove true. So every time the mates rates thing does come up, it's like, well, who am I training my kids to see me as? As well, like, because that's going to bleed out into other areas.
I love this. This is something I learned from one of my coaches when I was studying holistic health, right? So there's a lot of people who can't even adhere to their health goals, right? Again, their needs sit above their values. And he was like, if you get somebody that won't do something, it's like, give them this line. He said, if you can't do it for yourself, who is it or what is it you care about enough to do it for? And we've had this conversation. You've said this before on coaching calls. I heard you say it. If you can't do it for you, do it for your kids. If you can't do it for you, do it for your family. If you can't do it for you, do it. Anchor in someone you can do it for, someone that you love so much. And that will pull you out of the mates rates instantly. Mm-hmm. The moment that person, but what about the mates rates? And you start to bend the knee, and now, you have a flash. Who is it that I love, that I can do this for, to stand strong for my kids? They're at home, they need to be fed. We need to create a great life. I need to rewrite the story. I need to rewrite the pattern. Sorry, bud. It's full price today. Like, if you can make that, put that on tap, it's game over. Like, I know, and I probably think you probably think the same as well. We think very similarly on this thing. The reason we do what we do now is so we can be those people when we do have kids. 100%. I'm thinking about that now, even when I don't have kids. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who and what I am work, and I'm sure you think the same like this sometimes. We're working for something that doesn't even exist right now. How wild is that? We know the love and the passion and the story that is going to go into that, and the energy. It's like, if you can't do it for yourself, who or what do you love enough to do it for, and hold that strong? That will get you out of the mates rate shit straight away. And that comes back to challenging the equation then. Do you love the kid more than you love yourself, or do you love yourself more than the kid? Because that, again, this is not my opinion. This is just a scientific study in psychology. Most people worship themselves more than anything else in the world. It's just how we're wired. So it's not your fault. But again, we could definitely change the narrative.
Mm. Yeah, and it's like, just picture that person in your head every time that something happens or an uncomfortable conversation comes up when it comes to this type of stuff. Place that person in your mind and just think, imagine they were watching me right now. How would I want this interaction to transfer and to teach? Like, how would I want that to actually come across?
Yeah.
And one of the worst times to do that, like, is at checkout. You don't have to. You can have the conversation in the chair. People, like, your clients are at the mercy of the tools when they're under the cape.
Yeah.
Like, you can, and people beat around the bush so much, but there's just nothing like a little bit of honesty.
Yeah.
Just say, like, hey, look, fucking whatever. Let's use John as an example. Hey, John, got a bit of news for you. Like, up to now, I've been cutting your hair for I don't know how many years, and I've been giving you mates rates. Like, we ran the numbers, it's costing us $10,000 a year, and I can't afford to put little Johnny in school because of that. Mm-hmm. Like, not unfortunately,
it's
but
not even unfortunate. Yeah,
it's like, today we're going to have to go back to full rates, and it's okay if I understand if that affects your situation. And if it does, it's been fucking fantastic. It's like going through a break. Like, you got to put something out there in terms of risk.
Yeah.
But what's the worst risk? Risking bringing someone in at a normal price. It's not like you're charging him more.
No.
But bringing someone just to the normal price that everyone else is paying, or your kid not being able to live the life. Yep. And again, getting passed on the principles of people pleaser, and doing stuff for everybody, all of that stuff.
And this is coaching now. This is where we go with our coaching, right? Like, all of this can be set up. You know, we have systems and processes for all of this. This doesn't have to be an uncomfortable conversation. This can be a very calculated and fluid conversation. It can be early. You can handle the objections early. It doesn't even have to reach the shop if it doesn't have to.
You don't even have to have the conversation in person. If you do this well enough, it's understood. It's understood. You don't have to do this uncomfortable thing.
And when it's done early, and this is one of the bits of magic that we teach people in the running, is like, it feels like it's less you versus them. It's more, come on a journey with me. They feel very respected because the person's like, wow, they've really actually taken some time to think about this to let me know ahead of time. And like, they clearly care. So this isn't easy for them. They feel respected and seen. If they want to kick off, you can handle the objection. Most people calm down after a little bit anyway. And if you can't do that, then you turn on the marketing, which you should always be doing, to attract new clients at your dream price. That's just the end of the story. So, but anyway, we're digging into a little bit of coaching there, but this is it. I think what we've boiled it down to here is like, it's majority beliefs, and the beliefs that you inherited, a lot of the time, if they're not conscious and they haven't been serving you, they're going to damage you. And that's where a lot of this matrix stuff comes from. Damaging past beliefs.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's an incredible topic because there's such a ripple effect from it, and it's on the surface, it's so small, like it's like the tip of the domino.
Yep.
But it can really spiral in both ways, and momentum loves to travel in both ways. It loves to go forwards and backwards. So like, whatever way you decide to tip it, just pause for a second and make sure that decision is the best one for yourself and your future. And like, who is it that you are at all times when everyone's watching, like, or no one's watching? It's the same thing. It's like, how are you going to train your team to give mates rates? You know, I've seen some of the best barbers in the world come to hate cutting hair because of giving mates rates, because of the psychological damage and the effects that it had on their passion for the craft or whatever it was they were doing. But it's actually the passion that they have to view themselves in a certain way.
It's a trap.
It's a trap, and I think when you connect it to an outcome like that, and you have a reason, like a why, like a purpose behind it, and it's done from a place of logic rather than emotion, and it's calculated, if it's calculated well, it doesn't warrant an explanation. People will only ask questions if it's not communicated well enough.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to the story. There's, we've got to start taking what we do a bit more seriously too. Like I explain this to a lot of people as well. This is our livelihoods. For most barbers, if cutting hair is your only source of income, your primary income and your only source, that is how you primarily make your livelihood. That means that is how you live. So for people to argue with you that you can't live the way that you need to through doing your chosen profession, that's ludicrous. That takes a real asshole to say, no, I don't want you. No, I don't want you to have that. No, you can't have that. No, you don't. People like you don't do that. That takes a real asshole to do that. So we need to get a little bit more grit. Say, no, this is my livelihood. This is how I make money to live, to feed my family, to pay my bills, to pay my mortgage, to live.
I think what's also misunderstood is the fact that like barbering isn't a bucket that you just have to fill and just keep everything in that one bucket. Like the clients that you start with aren't the clients that you finish with, and I think that understanding that is really crucial here as well, because one of the biggest fears when it comes to like getting rid of mates rates and putting prices up is that I'm going to lose my clients. Well, that's the point. That's actually the point. Yeah. You're supposed to lose clients because then you free up space to attract new ones. And then if you attract a complete new roster, then you have, you're conditioning people from the beginning again. That's like what's normal. You're bringing people in at full price point based on some of the basic levers of business that you've pulled, such as marketing and brand. And like, then it's nearly easier to grow with new people than it is with old. Like, look at even us coming to Australia versus being in Ireland. I could never do what I'm doing now in my hometown because people have grown up with me and they have a perception and a view of me that could never get to a certain point when it comes to hair. But now that I've come over here, it would change their perception.
Yep. And like we always talk about it, everything's weird until it's not, right? Everything's strange when you don't understand it, but the moment you do, it's not weird anymore.
That's normal.
It's like it's normal. Everything's weird until it becomes normal, and eventually everything becomes normalized. Because again, in psychology, they call it critical mass. Once an idea hits critical mass, it becomes normal. So, and this is a great thing for any barbers listening as well. I said this to you this morning. What if, this is where we need to get a bit more grit as an industry at large. What if we all just went $100 or £100 above? No questions. Well, guess what? We've just hit critical mass. Nobody has a choice. They have to pay it. Like, this is what, when we're playing this small game of like, oh, do I not? Is it worth it? Oh, that's not fair, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we're only doing ourselves an injustice. As a collective, as an industry, as barbers in general and hairdressers, because what if we all came up? We just set the new standard. We just set the new normal. That has now been normalized. And then everybody pays it. And then it's like, oh, well, that's just why everybody pays. Like, who said $50 was normal? Who said $100 was normal? It's like, the cool thing is like McDonald's, right? I know we bring them up a lot in our business talks, but it's like they are so clever at slowly bringing up the normal that it never feels like they're reinventing the normal. Now their burgers aren't the same price they were when they started, but they're clever with it.
Neither are their clients.
Neither are their clients. Exactly. Because most of them die because they get fat and unhealthy. Yeah. But this is it, guys. There's so many ways to think about, and as you'll learn from this pod, most of it is psychological. And yes, it's easier said than done, but it takes courage. It takes humility. And sometimes it takes finding the help. We've found help from multiple people, numerous people now that have helped us pulled us in all different ways and directions.
Yeah.
And it's been tough at times. It has been tough at times.
Yeah. And like one of the worst things that anybody can do who's listening to this when it comes to mate rates is to just keep pointing the finger at the mates. It's actually your fault. It's you.
Well, what do they say?
It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility now. One finger pointing away, there's three pointing back at you.
So it's easy to like just put the blame on it's the mate and it's the this and it's the that. And But ultimately, it's still your decision, and you can make that change any day that you choose to.
Yep.
But
It can be tomorrow.
But your actions and behaviors that follow it is what is going to determine its success. Because just putting it up for the sake of putting it up, or to just drop the rates and what you've made normal for the sake of doing it without any obvious logic. You can communicate logic to people through your behavior, not your words. And then it just becomes normal.
Yep.
So
what are we making normal?
Exactly. What are we making normal? And I think paying just what the price of something is, full price, should be made normal. Especially for something that is such low ticket, like a haircut.
And tangible work with your hands. This isn't some sort of like digital product or something that you can't really see or feel. You're working with your hands and your body.
Problem.
That you're creating something, physically creating something. When was that not valuable?
Yeah. Or one of the main problems is the margin.
Yeah.
Because it would be okay to give a mate's rate if it was like 9% margin.
Yeah.
You know? But like you're giving away your margin.
Yep.
And that is the biggest issue here.
Yeah.
You know, like for something like our coaching business or whatever it is, you know, we have different systems in place for referrals or for different things. And it's like we can incentivize people and to come on our things because the margins are so different.
Yeah. We can afford to give away spaces.
Yeah.
A space if we really choose to. If we choose to. That's not our aim, but if we choose to, we can. It's because it's different. It's a different margin.
But, you know, we don't.
No,
like,
we don't. But like,
it's not something we do, but it's like if we chose to, we could.
Exactly.
Because
and there's times for that.
But there's scarcity and there's abundance, and most barbershops are operating out of scarcity because they're just making ends meet. They're just about getting over the hump when it comes to bills. Whereas like some of the people we know, the guy who has the $6,000 effective hourly rate, people ask him all the time, well, why do you do this then? Like, why are you doing this event, or why are you doing this thing? Because isn't this not like worth your time? And he's got a simple answer: because I want to.
Yep.
And
like, because I can.
Because it's choice.
It's choice.
Because he's now got a life of choice because of the hourly rate.
He enjoys it. It lights him up.
Exactly. So it's important not to fall into the trap of everything that I do requires me putting it through my effective hourly rate either, because then you won't do anything that you enjoy. Like, it's like, oh, I can't go to the beach today with my family because my effective hourly rate is $6,000 an hour. So like, you know, don't
if they don't cough up, I can't go.
Yeah. So like, it's just silly. And I think, you know, we've been conditioned in programs so much since youth, especially in the UK and Ireland, into like your whole life revolves around work. And if it doesn't make sense from a work perspective, it doesn't make sense. Yet here people are charging fucking peanuts and getting barely any margin, which is the very thing they're giving all their time away for isn't making them any money. It's crazy. It's really getting to worrying stages. And if people don't make some changes for themselves, and it starts by educating ourselves, seeing the world differently. Start by reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Just, if you haven't read it, just read the book and you'll see the world in a different way. And once you see it in that way, you won't be able to go back to doing what it is that you were doing. And that's it. You know, that's really it.
Yep. Learning to see it in a new way and empowering ourselves. Empowerment is huge.
And there's a lack of intelligence in it because, as Hormozy would say, the intelligent person will get slapped in the face once or twice and then they'll make the changes. Whereas the unintelligent person will keep getting slapped in the face and never make a change.
Yep.
And what that does psychologically over time is burn you out, and you are the most important element of your business. And without you, the business doesn't exist. So if you eventually hate it because you've spent all of your time giving discounts for something that's already barely making any money, you're literally perpetuating yourself in your own hamster wheel. It's wishing death upon your business. It's fucking you up bad. So change it.
Yep.
And sometimes it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, where do I go from here? Start building your personal brand yesterday. Start sharing your journey yesterday. Start educating yourself, getting knowledge, associating with things. I think a lot of the time people read business books like they're fucking novels. Like, No. This is stuff that you can apply in your life, like, and go and apply it. Application is, that's why this whole knowledge is power thing is bullshit, in my opinion. Applied knowledge is power.
Yep.
You can have all the fucking knowledge.
You don't use it.
If you don't use it, it's not power.
Yep. End of story.
And that's it. So, I think that's a nice place to wrap it up. That was a long one.
It was a good one.
It's a good one, but it was a long one.
Longy bit of goodie.
So guys, please, just do it for yourselves. And if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your family. Do it for your kids. If you don't have kids yet, do it for your future kids. Like, I often think, like, how would I want them to view me? Like, what am I teaching those people? We're going to be responsible for conditioning human beings.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. Kids will seldom listen to what you do or listen to what you say. Kids will seldom listen to what you say, but they will almost always copy what you do. Always.
And what is it that you want to pass down? What is it that you want to pass forward? Not even down, but forward.
It's behaviours. Yeah. Pass on to make a bigger, better world. Because clearly, like we always say, we often find people who come to see us, who listen to these pods, who come to our shows, who want our education, want our coaching, realize that the things that they're doing aren't working. And if we keep doing the things that aren't working, that doesn't create a bigger and a better future.
Yeah. And when we speak to the word freedom as well, we speak to the word freedom a lot. Freedom can exist in the same constraints that you have right now. It's just giving it a different meaning in different context.
Yeah.
Because freedom to me is choice. It's not having loads of time. Freedom to me is like, how am I choosing to spend my time?
People confuse it. I think people think freedom is doing nothing.
Yeah.
The ability is just doing nothing. You could choose to do nothing if you want, but what we've experienced is 99% of people actually just choose to do stuff anyway, but it's just more heart-centered and it feels what they really want to do. They just get a moment to really sink into the heart and think, well, what is it I really want to do now?
Yeah, it's actually autonomy. It's having control over what it is that you do with your life.
Yep.
And this industry doesn't set people up for that.
Nope.
It really doesn't. Even at salon owner level, they're all run by their clients because their own systems aren't good enough. And there's simple levers that you can pull that we help people with that will solve all of that.
Yep. You've seen it happen right in front of our very own eyes.
Which you'll find out about very soon because we're going to have somebody come on and talk about it.
Share their experiences.
Yes. So that's not enough to move you guys. I don't know what is. So get to it because time is moving forwards.
Life's too short to stay limited, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got value out of that. If you want to change your life, join us. You know what to do. You know where to find us. You know what message to send. And that's it.
See you next time.